What's up guys, hope everyone is doing well. In this video I'm going to be going over some updates for XYO. Before I get into the charts, I want to speak about a specific Be in Crypto article that is talking about, well, really the title is "The Great Convergence, is TradFi Ready for On-Chain Finance? Beyond ETFs, the Next Wave of Institutional Capital." And really a main aspect of it pertains to Marcus Levin, is one of the co-founders of XYO, citing, which he actually brought this up in a crypto space that was held a number of weeks ago, which it's something I've already talked about on my X page, but the Standard Charter report, along with Synpulse as well, predicted that the RWA market could grow to a staggering 30 trillion by 2034. The World Economic Forum, also mentioned by Levin, projected that the decentralized physical infrastructure network ecosystem, which is a lot of times considered as a subset or subcategory of the real world asset sector, is expected to grow to 3.5 trillion by 2028. This is obviously a massive paradigm shift, something that Levin has really been emphasizing in the last two instances I've specifically seen him bring this up. And really, this is all just part and parcel of the broader push and the incentive towards the global economy moving from an off-chain status to an on-chain status, and something like XYO as a DePIN network, as a data oracle, a very viable real-world blockchain solution that has unbelievably far-reaching implications within society at large, is, obviously, as it's been touted many times by myself, and even XYO as an entity, having over 10 million nodes, being the world's first and largest decentralized physical infrastructure network, actually even being around in this context before the term DePIN was coined a number of years after XYO, in terms of the token, specifically launched back in 2018. But this is just absolutely massive. I mean, really, this cannot be overemphasized or overstated. Now, obviously, these are just projections. I mean, they are credible projections, obviously, going back to Standard Chartered, Synpulse, and the World Economic Forum. I mean, obviously, if we think about BlackRock and also with the Project Crypto for the SEC, and the further desire for tokenization of assets, obviously the stock market, thinking about those assets that are on the various indices, thinking about bonds and other aspects associated with that, being again moved from an off-chain status to an on-chain status, which is something I spoke about in a fundamental aspect in the Bitcoin video I uploaded a couple days ago, where I mean, I've been talking about this for around 2 years, maybe a little over 2 years, both here on the channel and in my personal life, saying that this is coming. I mean, basically, I think it was inevitable. Obviously, at this point, we're seeing it come to fruition, specifically with the Project Crypto initiative by the SEC to begin this transition from off-chain to on-chain, tokenizing assets, and seeing things like, for example, Microsoft or Apple, Tesla, the big name assets on these indices, and whatever else, whoever else, companies, entities, whatever it may be, wants to do this, we'll start to see them tokenize their shares and whatever else it may be, again, on the chain of choice, whatever they may choose, whether it's Ethereum or whatever, again, that they may want to choose. But that aside, just to kind of give a nice preface here as we lead here into the charts, we can see here on the daily, something I have been going over every so often whenever I upload these videos for XYO, specifically, is this daily chart here. We can see with each of these arrows here and these yellow zones, these three instances where we see there, which I've shown in past videos, we see these increasing bullish volume vector candles, these yellow vector candles that are, again, in each of these zones. There was one back here in August, September 2023. There was two here within the range of August to November 2024. Most recently, we saw one here right precisely at the low back in early April. Then there's been a few peppered right here within this range as well. Generally, there's just kind of this range right here, which is I've denoted as a buying zone because of all the yellow vector candles that have been printed here on these lows, because obviously these are lows where we're seeing these vector candles, specifically the yellow ones, these increasing bullish volume vector candles printed. And really the criteria has been that after at least around a 70% drop or more, that whenever we see these, as I indicated here with each of these instances going from left to right, once we see these meeting that criteria, we've seen XYO here have these nice moves here towards the upside with this most recent one here up to 4.5 cents. Ever since then, I actually think that the drop of most recent has been the most brutal. This one was basically 80%. This one here was 84%. So yeah, this move from here from roughly 4.5 cents all the way down to around 0.007 has been the most brutal correction or pullback of the accumulation to expansive phase, really. If we zoom out a little bit more here, I would personally label this kind of here as the initiatory accumulation phase, where we set these two lows here, this kind of double bottom, if you will, and then we began here this kind of expansion phase where we're exiting that predominant accumulation phase and we're starting to see the price of XYO expand gradually, stair-stepping like towards the upside as it really starts to load up, starts to compress in that expansion phase and lead into that parabolic phase, which is, really when people refer to alt season, a lot of times what is being specifically referred to when alt season, the term is invoked. And that's something that a lot of people have been waiting on. It's been delayed various times so far. Obviously, as I've said plenty of times in recent videos, Bitcoin has been front running everything. Nearly all altcoins haven't made any new all-time highs, have not really entered price discovery with the exception of Solana with a wick, and with the exception of also with XRP and maybe some others that I'm not aware of. But here on this daily chart, we can see here this ascending uptrend zone here that has continued to hold since August of 2024. So we're looking here at about a year-long uptrend zone. Also correlated here with these yellow vectors that I've been pointing out for these zones recently, going back to June, late June here. We can see they've done recently here two supports within this zone here. Also, we can see here that the 618 right along this level on the Fibonacci extension here on RSI, you can see every time we see, for example, here, right here, each of these times we see the RSI go above the 618 is when we see these major moves towards the upside for XYO. And ever since roughly mid-December of 2024, we've seen no movement of the RSI above this 618. There was a rejection here back in April earlier this year in 2025, and also a rough rejection here back in around mid to late July. So that's a key thing that I'm watching out for. That's also generally, I think, going to be relatively correlated with getting back above here the 200 EMA and the 800 EMA. Right now we're seeing XYO battle the 50 EMA in its band, getting back above the 800 to 200 EMA, which is a range of around basically right at a penny up to around 1.13 cents. That's going to be very important. Outside of that, obviously this rough 2-cent zone right here is going to be very important. You can see it was a major resistance and total rejection here. There was a wick resistance here, and ever since then XYO struggled to get back up to that level. So I believe that's going to be very important. But even beforehand, somewhere right around here, around a penny and a half, is going to be some resistance that will likely be ran into. We might see some choppiness here, then move up, choppiness here, then move up, or we might just see XYO completely just go buck wild above that. That's totally possible, especially given how sporadically, spontaneously volatile XYO can be towards the upside and also as well to the downside, which is something I want to bring up as well. To properly, you need to be forward thinking. You need to have a Promethean mindset here, and have that, as I said, forward thinking mindset here, especially with XYO, because of just how spontaneously and sporadically volatile it is towards the upside. And it has these, obviously here with the going up to 4.5 cents, very quick move, then it very quickly started to go down and lose a lot of that valuation. Like I said, upwards to this move here was somewhere around, pushing 85% after hitting 4.5 cents. Also, if we, again, zoom out here on the daily, we go, and here we segment off going all the way back to the first low set here in the accumulation zone. We can see here that the RVI has gotten as low, very low, down to here accumulation zone lows, like for example back here when we saw this low being set, yet the price is obviously, like I said, still in this uptrend zone of about a year long. That's a good sign, I believe. Waiting to see the RVI get above the median here is going to be very important. And then outside of that, if we look here at the MACD, you can see that it's just been gradually kind of building up. Really, I kind of think just kind of this like ascending upwards channel here roughly. And I think it's something relatively similar to what happened right here, where we've yet to see, basically we're seeing, I believe, this kind of momentum pressure being built up here, and eventually it will have this bust towards the upside, and we'll see that monumental rise, that price appreciation, that parabolic alt season that everybody's been waiting for. Also, if we look down here at the ASO, we can see that the bullish sentiment's been moving upwards here recently, so we might see a cross of that soon, which could potentially correlate with the RSI moving above the 6 and 8, and actually finally seeing XY move back up here to 2 cents and continuing to go higher and higher. Especially also everything else considered, looking at Ethereum, with it recently pushing back above 4,000, it's looking quite strong. It's breaking some higher time frame, like monthly or so descending resistances. It's breaking shorter term, also but higher term time frame horizontal resistances as well. So that's obviously going to be a leading indicator, Ethereum, in sense of altcoin space and alt season as a whole. A lot of the times we'll see Ethereum front run the altcoins, just like Bitcoin front runs Ethereum itself and literally everything else. So look here at the weekly chart again, we're still seeing basically this is kind of just a weekly variant here, this uptrend of the daily uptrend that I showed just a few moments ago. We can see here that there's this candle close resistance that's been broken here. We're seeing a retest of it so far, finding support along that. Yet this wick resistance here, so far we see here 1, 2, 3 touch points. That's going to be important to get above really the descending resistance here, to get above, see a nice weekly candle close above, to round it up a bit around 1.3 cents. And I think we could potentially very quickly, obviously we would probably test somewhere around 2 cents, might see some choppiness here like I said, but we could very well, again, factoring in how spontaneously volatile and buckwild XY can be, we might just very quickly see a move up here to prior all-time highs right along in this area right here at around 8 cents, potentially upwards towards around 23 cents, maybe seeing some wicks, because XYO is a very wicky asset, very wicky crypto, so we might even see some wicks up towards like 30 cents as well. But I definitely think that this green zone here, which obviously something I've been pointing out for a while for those of you that keep up with these videos, I think that's going to be a very important zone here for many reasons. It's really all that I wanted to go over for this chart. Again, still the same price targets really. Again, here that green zone, around 8.5 cents or so up to 23 cents, maybe some higher with some wicks, like I said. Then the main target here, which again I've went over this plenty of times. It's deduced and derived from various ways of analyzing the charts in a technical sense. Somewhere just around 50 cents here, upwards towards around $2.30, which obviously plenty of times I've said it definitely could go way higher than $2.30. Just because of how low the circulating, and even like obviously XYO being a deflationary and capped supply, sitting somewhere around 13.5 billion, relatively low coin supply here. So in that sense, it could go far higher. It could go upwards towards, I think, somewhere around like approximately $36 is like the highest that I've entertained, because I think that's when it starts to reach how much Bitcoin would be. That's assuming if Bitcoin goes towards like approximately $200,000 or so. But if it were to go higher than $2.30, I think somewhere upwards towards like $5 to $8, then like $15 to $20 would be a little bit more reasonable. But like I've said, around I think the 50 cents here upwards towards $2.30. So the nice median sweet spot here of around $1 is most reasonable. It is the most conservative, but like I said, there's definitely plausibility and reason behind it going significantly higher than that as we begin to see the true alt season begin. And really one of the things that I've emphasized in recent videos is the fact that this, obviously the fundamental landscape regarding blockchain and crypto at large is very different this time around. And it's obviously that is translated to a technical difference as well, with the growing adoption and initiation of further integration within society of the things I mentioned earlier, with those Standard Charter and Synpulse World Economic Forum projections for the sectors that XYO operates within, with the Bitcoin spot ETFs, the growing interest in obviously the Ethereum spot ETFs and other altcoin spot ETFs as well. We're just really, I believe, seeing potentially over the next 3 to 5, pushing 10 years, we're going to really see that most critical inflection point in the adoption curve of Bitcoin specifically, but just blockchain solutions at large, where we're really going to see things rapidly, exponentially, kind of almost at the blink of an eye pick up. I mean, that's really just the nature of adoption curves with technology, with being that S curve, which, I mean, I've shown this chart. I'll bring it up again plenty of times recently. This is just the nature of the adoption of technologies that have a very revolutionary impact on society as integral paradigms within the technological innovation continuum. And as I've said plenty of times, I think XYO is going to be one of those big players. It already, I believe, is cementing itself as one of the big players within the DePIN, within the DePIN and the data oracle space. Also, like I said, associated with RWAs, real world assets as well. But here we can see on this weekly chart for XYO, we can see here, getting rid of these drawings for the moment, we can see here that we see the 50 here and the 200 moving averages. This is here is the golden cross. We just got it going back to around like mid to late July, right around here. This is the first ever weekly golden cross that XYO has seen. Now, typically with golden crosses, there is some short-term downside after the initial cross, which we can actually see here. Really, once we saw this golden cross is right here when XYO is locally topping out right around here. And then since then, it's been going down. Again, like I said, that is kind of typical for golden crosses. If you go and look at other assets that, like for example, for Bitcoin, that have a lot more data to go off and a lot more golden crosses to consider, a lot of the times there is some short-term downside after that golden cross, but typically in the medium to longer term, it does pick up and start to really show significant price appreciation. Now, if I pull back up here the drawings, here with these blue trend lines, I just have a number of wick supports here, some candle close supports here, really kind of just clustering up a support zone right along in this area where XYO has been finding support, really kind of going back to obviously late March earlier this year, where it's been kind of chopping relatively sideways right here from around just a tad bit below a penny, around 0.008 all the way up to around 1.4 cents or so, and that's what the candle closes there. So really, again, we're looking here at this choppiness, this consolidation. We've seen this golden cross. We're seeing these supports here. Obviously, like I said, going back to that previous weekly chart and that daily chart with those support zones there. So if we continue to see this here with these supports, with this golden cross play out, we start to see Ethereum really have a volatile breakout. We start to see the Bitcoin dominance go down, which I'll get to that shortly towards the end of the video. We start to see that Bitcoin dominance really start to tank, which it's looking like it's starting to further and further solidify that. But once you start to see all these key factors become confirmed, I believe, again, as I went over on this chart here around just testing prior all-time highs at around 8 cents, maybe pushing it down to like 6 cents upwards towards like 20, 30, 40 cents or so, maybe with some wicks. Might even, we could potentially even see XLO come up here and, mainly meet this green zone, but then see a major wick up to 50 cents. Whereas we see candle closes more so around here around like 20 to 25 cents or so. But there's also this ascending zone that you can see here that once we saw Bitcoin initially bottom out here, saw some relief, continue to go down, basically just horizontally bottomed out. When it tad bit lower here towards September, October 2023, but essentially was setting the horizontal bottom here in this accumulation zone. And then here began this expansion phase here towards the upside. And I believe what's coming next here is really the parabolic portion where we see XYO move up to prior all-time highs, enter price discovery, likely, obviously best case scenario, probably find some resistance here, some rejection and chop here for a little bit. Might come back down after hitting upwards towards like 20 cents, maybe even looking higher, like I said. Might even see a pullback all the way back down to the prior all-time high zone right here, maybe even coming down to like 5 cents again after it hits upwards towards 20 cents, or maybe even a little bit higher with those wicks, like I said. But also we can see here with this ascending zone, so far with each of these moves upwards, as you can see here, these three main points, this is kind of the next zone again, which further validates, like I've said on that prior weekly chart, the around 8 cents upwards towards 20 cents here as well. So this is another data point that I haven't gone over in past videos that further validates seeing a move upwards towards here, this purple zone, and what is the green zone here on this chart. Now, we can see here that the RSI has been struggling to get above the 382 here. That's going to be important. Once we can finally see a good move above that, reach the 457 here, and especially move up to the 618 and continue higher. As you can see here, that the 618 here has been correlated with these moves here. Also getting above the 457 was really when this entire move here began. So that's going to be very important to watch out for here on the weekly. Seeing the stock RSI here has been moving up here, seeing that move to the median and go higher is going to be very important. MACD here has been moving up, see, flipping bullish recently, needs to get above the 0 point, continue higher just like each of these prior instances. I believe we're getting very close to that. Again, we're seeing really all these indicators kind of showing the same thing here with the RVI getting very oversold, with prices as they were here, getting to the same degree of oversold as it was back during, its bear market period back here as it was leading into that bear market low. So that's a good sign. We're seeing here the RVI is recently breaking out here of the Bollinger Band, so that's a good sign. Again, seeing that continue to move up here to the median, break above that, and then move above here the value of around 73. Last time this happened was, again, correlated with each of these moves right here that I've been pointing out, as they variously appear on the daily to the weekly as I have been moving up here along the time frames. Now if we move here to the most notable chart here, the 2 weekly, one of the more crucial things that I've gone over in the last number of videos for XY here is this ASO chart, or this ASO indicator down here with these symmetrical compressing, these convergent triangles. You can see here let's see some horizontal lines. You can see here whenever the ASO reached here the support of this ASO here for mainly these 2 instances here. You can see this was when XY was really starting to pick up, just as we're seeing right here in this current iteration of the bull market now. And then differently so whenever you can see it first started to enter these supports here with these, let's see, let's make them yellow here. If we look here at these yellow vertical lines, you can see here that when the ASO support down here was initially being met, the price still had some time to go down, such as you see here. But ever since, here, like for example, the second one here and the third one here, the second one here and the third one here, now we're potentially here on currently the third. Here, purple vertical, the third touch point here that could very likely, I think, move XY again back up to that zone of testing the prior all-time highs here and moving even higher towards that 15-20 cents, maybe even higher, with some volatile wicks towards the upside. Now, if we look here on the RVI, it's continuing to move up. Recently got above the median of the Bollinger Bands. That's a good sign. Now the main thing to see here is the RVI get above the value here of basically 60. This has not happened yet. The last time this happened would be going all the way back to February 2021, right as XYO was entering its parabolic phase of its prior bull run. So that's going to be a very big thing that I'm looking out for. I have an indicator set for that. We're seeing here the MACD again just kind of flatlining on support here. That's kind of really began this entire this accumulation and then leading into this expansion phase. We're seeing potentially the MACD building up here, potentially leading into a bullish cross, getting to the 0 point and having that nice momentum burst here further and further towards the upside. Now, again here, the stock RSI also finding here support along a rough horizontal zone going all the way back to the bull market bottom here. And then lastly here, looking at the RSIs, I've been going over it. There's this long-term inside Pitchfork ascending channel. Here you can see this is basically roughly synonymous with the ASO that I went over. We can see here, if you've been buying when the RSI is getting to this bottom of this channel, you've been making good decisions. History would support if you're doing it right now, buying, going all the way back to March towards Q1 of this year, then you would have, history shows making a good decision, as we've seen XYO basically chop sideways here in consolidation, leading into what I believe will be the next move up. And there's also this ascending resistance here that we could likely see come into play as we see XYO move up into this zone here. And then, like I said, find that rejection that could be to the degree of, let's see, like, for example, let's say it behaves quite similar to the past parabolic move here, moves up to the median, chops, and then goes to the top of the channel. We'd see something a move upwards towards like 22 cents, maybe with some wicks up to like I said, 35 cents towards that 382, maybe even higher. And then, we could potentially see a move from that high point all the way down to the true median, right here in the middle of the entire ascending inside Pitchfork, which would be moves to its highest, somewhere pushing like a 60, maybe even a 70% drop. And that's obviously going to be very scary, very brutal. So really, again, not financial advice, but it might be smart. And I feel like I've noticed this with a lot of people that make comments on these videos. It seems like a lot of people are aiming for like 20, 30, 40, 50 cents to get out for XYO. I think it's a fantastic thing to be seeing. It seems like people are aware of the fact that it's going to be good to start scaling out and taking profits as we see price discovery hit for XYO here. And then, but really ultimately, there still is that potential for a further higher bounce to meet the top of this inside Pitchfork channel here towards the 618 to the 786, and maybe even all the way back up to the top of the channel, which would again put XYO pushing towards that $2 to $3 range as the upper bound of the conservative target that I've been giving. Now I believe this is just one of the inside Pitchforks I have. I have quite a lot on here. If I can find, let's see. There's a specific one that I want to go. This one right here. This is another one. Really, I've got like 3 or 4 different inside Pitchforks drawn in here. This one's drawn from here, this high, to this low, to this high. Is generally how you draw them, from a high to low to high, or from a low to high to low, for the inside Pitchfork, or the other type of variant Pitchforks. But this one again also just further points to this range here of around 50 cents pushing upwards towards $2 to $3 at highest. So like I said, there's plenty of reason to believe that. But also we can see here this first initial move here hit the, let's see, what is that on the Pitchfork? That's the 236 here. So I mean, and then also with the wicks up to the 382. So that again further validates a move with this upcoming move, if it is to happen, somewhere up towards 15 cents, upwards towards like 20, 25, 30 cents, like I've been saying, with those wicks towards the upside. And so far here you can see with this inside Pitchfork that XYO has continuously bottomed out within the 786 to 618 zone. So that's also very good to see, especially so being in right here at the very bottom here and entering into this expansion phase. Which, we might see a total flip of this from the bottom bound, or the lower portion here of the 786 to the 618. We might see it then flip up here to the all-time high here to the upper bound 618 to 786, which would again be somewhere around 50, 60, pushing upwards towards $1, or maybe even higher, especially with those wicks that I keep mentioning, just because XYO is just really very, very wicky, very volatile towards the upside and towards the downside in brief spurts of price appreciation. Here we have the chart comparing, as you can see, Bitcoin from the top downward, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, XYO. You can see here with each of these color coordinated zones, starting from the left, you see the red, purple, turquoise, then you see pink, kind of a periwinkle, yellow, blue, and green, where you can see here with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano with the red, they bottomed out at the same time. XYO, when it came out in 2018, was launching right towards roughly the mid portion to the first bottom of that 2018-2019 bear market. Obviously, we can see here with Bitcoin, it started to then expand upwards here into its bull run. Same thing for Ethereum, same thing here for Cardano, but XYO was lagging behind, had significant downside pressure here, but then eventually made its W double bottom here, just as we saw Cardano do here, Ethereum do here, and we saw Bitcoin do here, leading into this purple zone of the March crash, where we saw XYO make its first bottom, its double bottom, as Cardano, Ethereum, and Bitcoin were making its second bottom of its double bottom of the bear run and the accumulation to expansion phase of phase 1 of cycle 3 for Bitcoin, as I've gone over in the Bitcoin videos. Now we can see here with the blue period here, the turquoise, that we can see here Bitcoin was basically, it had already topped out at 64K. Cardano, or Ethereum here, basically was already topping out. Same thing for Cardano. They were relatively, synonymous, small deviation, a small lag for these three, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. Whereas when they were topping out, we saw XYO really starting to begin its bull run, and then it mainly topped out in November whenever we saw Bitcoin have that pipsqueak run up to 69K. Same thing here for Ethereum, and really kind of the same thing roughly here for Cardano. And then here we see the brunt of the bull run or the bear run here. Then we see accumulation for Bitcoin, the first leg up in the current bull run for Bitcoin. We saw its correction here, the second leg of Bitcoin for its bull run, second correction here. Now I believe we're on the third leg, which is this green phase. And we've seen here this time around, obviously see here Ethereum is falling along here with Bitcoin, same thing for Cardano here, and then we've seen the same thing here for XYO. XYO here and Cardano look very much so alike, whereas Ethereum and Bitcoin look more like each other than they do here with Cardano and XYO. So again, really, this is really to kind of hit the final nail in the coffin, just to show that, especially for a lot of those people that keep making erroneous and seemingly ignorant claims that XYO is just not doing anything. It's not, Bitcoin pumps, XYO does nothing. That's just, objectively and patently absurdly false. That's just, I still can't believe I see people making those claims. It's very clear that they're not looking at the charts and they're not cross-analyzing XYO with Bitcoin or even Ethereum or Cardano or even other altcoins, because they're really all kind of following this general temporal trend here where we see Bitcoin is front-running everything. It's already been in price discovery. It's making new all-time highs, whereas we have not seen Ethereum do that. We have not seen Cardano do that. We have not seen XYO do that. The vast majority of the altcoin space has not entered price discovery and set new all-time highs. And like I said earlier on towards this video, as we can see here with Ethereum, it very much so looks like we're seeing these moments here with Ethereum getting ready to break past its prior all-time high of around, 4.6K up to around 4.9K. We're seeing this horizontal resistance right here being broken. Very, very good early signs for a coming alt season, which, again, like I said earlier on in the video, the fundamental landscape is drastically different towards it's very positive. It's never been better now for the fundamental landscape, which is obviously translating into the technical state of the charts. So I do believe that this alt season around could potentially be quite different in the sense that they're not necessarily, it's not that they're going to not pump as hard as in past alt season cycles, but I think this time around we might see more of a selective alt season catered towards viable blockchain solutions such as Ethereum, Cardano, XYO, Solana, Sonic, obviously there's plenty of them out there. I think we'll still see a lot of the meme coins run up because I feel like that's kind of inevitable, but I think this upcoming parabolic alt season has a good chance of being a lot more selective than with past iterations. Like, for example, back in 2020 to 2021, we had that massive liquidity injection with the stimulus checks and plenty of other things. People were just throwing their money in the market. People throwing their money in things like Dogecoin or SHIB or all the other altcoins. It's just obviously things are fundamentally sociopolitically different this time around. But I would argue even without those stimulus checks and the other factors that made 2020 to 2021 as euphoric as it was are here. Like for example, the Donald Trump just recently signed an executive order to open up the American 401k programs to cryptos. I'll bring the picture up here, but I'm forgetting right now if it was specific. I think it was just Bitcoin. I don't think it was kind of crypto at large. I do believe it was just Bitcoin, but if I am mistaken, I will bring up something to show that. But that's massive. It's somewhere around approximately 12 trillion or so dollars within those 401k programs. That's obviously a lot of liquidity and money that could be flowing into Bitcoin over the next few months, over the next few years. Maybe we will see an extended Bitcoin run. Maybe that will then translate into altcoins as well, and we'll see them. Maybe my previous targets here for XYO here, just let's see, go back to this chart, going up to just 50 cents to $2.30. Maybe we will see that move up to $5, $8, maybe even upwards towards $10, $15, $20. Maybe Bitcoin just absolutely explodes. We see another few years or so of a bull run for Bitcoin. It starts pushing 400, 500K. Maybe we're going to see a gradual stride upwards towards $1 million with no major bear market towards 2030 to 2033 or so, which could definitely translate here for XYO pushing upwards towards that $20, $30. And even especially if Bitcoin goes towards $1 million, we could see XYO go higher than that. Now, again, take that with a grain of salt. Obviously, that's going to be a lot of market capitalization appreciation for XYO. But if we do see something like that, and we see things like Ethereum along with Bitcoin and Cardano here and everything else, just a massive multi-year rally after we've already seen some pretty decent, especially for Bitcoin, price appreciation thus far, we could definitely see something like XYO go far higher than the conservative price targets I've mentioned, especially with the fact that XYO is within that key space that I was mentioning earlier with the RWA market, with DePINs and the Standard Charter and Impulse reports, along with the World Economic Forum reports, with massive growth within these spaces. With that World Economic Forum projection going up to 3.5 trillion by around 2028 is around 115x the size that it currently is right now. So that's absolutely massive. Okay, so if we look here at the Bitcoin dominance, I went over this in the previous Bitcoin video, so I'll kind of try to keep this brief. Obviously, we've got the major macro resistance here. We've got the uptrend that's being broken. As you can see right here, it's continuing. As you can see here with this red bi-weekly candle, it's continuing to go lower. If I move here to the daily, again, we can see here that this support right here is now broken. It's continuing to go lower. I think that this is more likely than not to continue over the next few weeks, over the rest of this month, going even into the end of this year. As we get closer and into Q4, we're seeing the RSI continue to break down here below its horizontal support that goes all the way back to March of 2023. Stock RSI is really starting to get below this median here, which is generally going to be a good sign in terms of the bearishness of it. MACD is continuing to look bearish there, and we're seeing here this uptrend here is getting closer and closer to being tested, and I think broken and moving below here the 50 point or the 0 point on the RVI. It's going to be something very important. And also, one of the things I went over too in the Bitcoin video, and I touched on this, was the fact that if you look here at the RVI, the 50 value here, the 0 point, as I like to refer to it as, was broken here for the first time since going back to March of 2023. That's just, really, this is, as you can see here, was what was one of the main factors in upholding this entire run up here for Bitcoin dominance. And there's plenty of other things I went over in that past Bitcoin video that appears to be credibly alluding to the fact that this very well might be that moment we all have been waiting for the Bitcoin dominance to start tanking, to finally see Ethereum front run the altcoin space, and then to eventually start to see the more obscure altcoins start to begin their parabolic phases towards the upside. Now, if we look here, final number of charts I'm going to go over, we can see here at the top here, the total 3 chart. As I've been saying recently, it's testing its horizontal all-time high resistance. Currently, the bi-weekly candle is now green, could potentially be breaking that soon, continuing to go higher towards the upside. The macro resistance here, the inside Pitchfork, anywhere from around like 3.3 up to around 5.5 trillion or so, might even go higher, who knows. One key thing here is that the entire time, right here within this area, we've seen this total 3 chart here. Now, this is the crypto market capitalization excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. This entire time, it's been gradually stair-stepping within the median, and this is one of the key factors we haven't seen yet. This has not been indicative of seeing a full-on parabolic euphoric bull run for the market capitalization of altcoins, things outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum. So we've yet to see this move up here, breaking the median right here along the, what is that, the 236 there, here, and actually seeing this deviation of the median up towards the top side of this channel. Now, if you look here at this chart, this is the others chart. So this is the market capitalization of everything, excluding the top 10 cryptocurrencies in terms of their market valuation, their market capitalization, rather. Again, we can see here that the inside Pitchfork I have on here, we've seen the continued support along the 786 to 618 zone, and we haven't even really, just a few times here, touched the median with these local peaks here. So we're still, again, waiting on that to happen. If it moves back up to the top of this inside Pitchfork, such as you can see here, going all the way back to December of 2017 here for both the others and the total 3. Then we would see the others here move upwards towards 2.5 trillion, towards around 4 trillion, and again, it could go higher than that as well. Now, if we look here at the This is the others dominance. We can see here that there's this ascending uptrend zone that originally began as this major rejection here going into December 2016. We saw this move back above, and ever since then you can see each of these major support points along here leading into now currently, which now is very interesting because we've seen this cluster here of 4 increasing bearish volume candles printed here at the lows of this ascending zone, and also kind of roughly within this horizontal zone right here, obviously factoring this deviation. So that's, I think this is generally a good sign. You can also see here that the last time a purple vector here, the increasing bearish volume candle was printed here in this zone right along right here. We saw this move up here. We did see this major crash, but ultimately this is really indicative of this larger move here towards the upside. So we very well could see the others dominance here pick up. We'll start to see the dominance of everything outside of the top 10 of the crypto market capitalization sphere start to pick up here over the next few weeks and few months. Now if we look down here at the bottom, this is the I haven't gone over this chart at all before in this channel. So the ratio total market cap excluding the top 10 to Bitcoin. So again, that's the ratio of the others to Bitcoin. And basically these two charts went up here, others dominance, and then this ratio others to Bitcoin basically look almost identical. Again, we see this same, basically this uptrend here. We're seeing a cluster of these purple vectors, these increasing bearish volume candles in the lows here. Again, there's also this cluster right here that's within this same horizontal zone. And you can see right here, this would have been leading into the lows. And as it obviously began to build up here and had this major move towards the upside. So really here, this is kind of a full spectrum here, broader analysis just to show. I'm trying to get these as even as I possibly can here to give some concluding remarks here, showing with each of these 4 charts, a total 3, the others dominance, and the others to Bitcoin ratio, showing that they are in crucial spots and key zones to see further movement towards the upside, especially factoring in how Bitcoin looks, the fundamental landscape, and everything else. But the last thing I want to mention is what I've posted about on the community tab of this channel recently with the XYO video that I plan on getting out sometime before the end of the current weekend, where I'm going to go over the structure and function of the XYO layer 1 blockchain. I'm going to go over the Gitbook page that the XYO team has been documenting, get into the nitty gritty, the technical terms, the jargon, the stuff that a lot of people, don't particularly understand. It goes over a lot of people's heads. I'm going to go over that to get really technical about it in XYO's own words and own terms, and then I'm going to transition into my own presentation that I put together to kind of really condense that information, simplify it a bit while still being technical and relatively comprehensive, and make it simplex, provide a geometrical model for you guys to understand the flow of data within the XYO layer 1 blockchain, how it collects that data, how it bridges that data to the chain, how it archives that data, and how that data is then interacted with in order to provide the solutions that it is going to be used for within the real world. And then also connect that to the ancient Greek culture, going all the way back to the first millennia BCE, and really honestly it kind of probably stems back early to sometime maybe mid 2nd millennia BCE with the Oracle at Delphi, mainly within that first millennia BCE, where we see the Oracle at Delphi, which was a prophetic divinatory oracle. Basically, it was an oracle that gave prophetic information, divine information, obviously because those people, polytheistic culture, believed in the divine, believed in the gods. And I think it's very much so important to bring up in context of XYO because it is a modern day technological data oracle that is similar and relevant to the Oracle of Delphi, but obviously it's not associated with religion or spirituality and things along those lines. But like I said, this was all that I wanted to go over, update, and talk about in this video. So as always, none of this is meant to be financial advice, but all that being said and everything gone over, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.